What's up, you guys? All right, well, trading on the traveling trading station here in my little office, which is kind of nice, you know, just to trade from home or whatever, but third consecutive red day. All right, so we're gonna break it down in the recap. I'm gonna talk about it. I know some of you guys have been commenting below that obviously I don't know how to trade anymore because to lose 2 days in a row, you know, it's like losing. I mean, it's like Tom Brady. You know, you lose a couple of games in a row, and everyone's telling you might as well throw in the towel and retire. Call it a day. You've done well. All right, now I'm sticking with my strategy as I always do, and I'm going to break down for you guys the drawdowns that I've had over the last 2 years. This is not right now even close to my biggest drawdown. I've had some big drawdowns. Yeah, 3 red days in a row is not fun. Nobody likes that. But being a successful trader is about being good at losing, being able to brush it off, let it go, not to let losses shake you up and get you to change your strategy. Because when you start getting reactive and you change your strategy and you're jumping from this to that, oh, I lost today, so now to try to make it up, I'm gonna swing trade this stock and hold it overnight because these other ones worked, and then I lose on that. Oh, well, okay, then I'm gonna try to buy options on this stock because it's got earnings next week, and you know, then you're really, you know, flailing, and you don't want to do that. You really, as much as possible, want to be calm, cool, collected, and stay the course of your strategy until you have data that over a longer period of time tells you that something is not working any longer. For me, for instance, I have a lot of data that tells me that I don't trade well generally past noontime. So to start trading past noontime and to try to break that trend of losing in the afternoon, I would have to really dip my foot in the water slowly. But I'd be willing to do that, potentially. You know, or for instance, I know over the long period of time that I generally don't do well trading higher priced stocks. And I did make some higher priced stock trades last week, and they did cost me a little bit. You know, so things like that, that's based on a lot of data. But to jump day to day based on your emotion, based on, you know, the craziness in the market, in my opinion, that's not a good way to trade. So we'll break down the recap today. It's a little bit of a longer one. I'm giving you guys a good dose of some educational content here. I hope you guys give me the thumbs up. You really enjoy this recap. Transparency really is very important. And on that note, my February broker statements are uploaded to the website. $66,000 in total profit, which was great, but obviously would have been better if I didn't have those 2 red days at the end of the month. So, you know, it is what it is. Again, brushing it off, starting here March with a red day, but you know, I'll be back at it, back in the green, back at all-time highs before you know it. So questions, comments, leave those below, and I'll see you guys first thing tomorrow morning. And make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, because if you didn't already know, I go live every single morning for free on YouTube to share with you guys my watch list. So hit that subscribe button. All right, see you guys in the morning. All right, you guys, so we're gonna go over the trades from today. This is the 3rd consecutive green day. Sorry, I wish. This is the 3rd consecutive red day. This is a little disappointing. This is, I don't know when the last time was I had 3 consecutive red days, but you know, it happens from time to time. And so I'm sitting here with my 3rd red day, and I'm frustrated. I was up $2,500 this morning, and then where things fell apart was on my last trade on APDN. So let's look at that stock. Well, we can start. Why don't we start by looking at the gappers, and also I'll preface this recap. So, you know, obviously seeing comments and stuff on YouTube of folks who are like, you know, Ross, you're trading during, you know, a really weak market. Have you ever traded during a weak market before? So if we look at the S&P 500, this is what we've been dealing with the last 3 days. Well, the last week or so. Obviously, we're in correction territory. The market's down more than 10% off the highs. We had a green day on Friday. The market bounced off the lows. I was still red. Today, we're up here in this area, and I'm red here. So I've been red these 3 days, and I was green these days back here. I've traded through pullbacks and corrections on a number of different occasions. We can go back here. This, at the time, was seen as a pretty big correction because people were talking about possible recession. This was December of 2019, December of 2018, and everyone was saying that we're in for a recession. At that point, the market had been up quite a bit. We had pulled back, and then we broke that critical level and dropped down. Of course, we had a little pullback going into that drop. We had another one right through here. And if you go back a little further, we had this drop in 2015 where the market, really pulled back pretty hard. And, you go back further and, of course, you see some other ones that were pretty dramatic. So it's not something that I haven't traded through. And I would say that the losses in the last couple days have been kind of interesting. The first loss on Thursday was related to trying to trade these coronavirus stocks. And obviously that didn't work out super well on that day, although it had worked really well in the days leading up to Thursday. Friday, just overstayed my welcome. I was green on the day by $800 or $1,000 and then gave it back. And that's almost the same as what happened today. I could have walked away up $2,500 and I didn't. So my very first trade out of the gates today was actually on DXR. And this was a bad trade. So this was our leading gapper in the entire market, up 109%. All right, so up 109%. And I jumped in it with 500 shares at 17. So let's look at this. So it was a little red to green, as you can see right here. I bought at 1701, and it hit a high of 1790. I didn't sell. I didn't take profit. I was looking for the break through 18, the pre-market high. It didn't break through that level. It came back down, and I ended up taking a $1,000 loss on it. So, didn't take the profit off the table and ended up turning into a loss. My next trade was on APDN. APDN, kind of a wild, a sort of wild trade here. Right out of the gates, the stock squeezes up and then drops back down, as you can see. I'll pull up that stock. So let's see, IFRX. So this IFRX, let me check the float. IFRX. Float is 15 million shares. It's up 23%, being called a coronavirus sympathy play. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. Anyways, APDN squeezes up out of the gates, up to 670, comes all the way back down, then comes back up right here. And my first entry was at 630, right here on this little micro pullback. That was an awesome trade. I jumped into this with 10,000 shares right here on this pullback with a stop at 20, risking $1,000. It ended up squeezing up to a high right here of 649, and then up to 661. It looked like it was going to halt going up, but I took my profit off the table, up $2,500. So that put me up $1,500 after DXR. It then drops all the way back down to 6, and I was like, oh my gosh, wow. All right, well, that's kind of wild. It comes back up right here, and I said, all right, you know what? If to fake out to the downside, it's going to rip to the upside. I'm back in it. I got back in right here at 660 for the break. It squeezed up to 685. I took my profit. On that trade, I only made about $600 or $700. So I was up right around $2,000, maybe $2,100. It then comes back up again, and I said, all right, I think this is going to break over $7. So I got back in right here at 85. I added at 7. And on this one, I started with 10,000 shares, and I went up to 12,000. And then I stopped out right here. So I went from up about $3,500 on the stock to down $1,700. So that's kind of where my day fell apart, because I went at that point from up 2,500 on the day to down 2,700. And I was like, man. And at that point, rather than just walk away, I started trying to dig myself out of the hole and get back to green. And the following trades, although I made a little bit back on a couple of them, XAIR, you can see this one popped up here, had a little trade from the 30s up to the high of 59 or 64, false breakout. It rejected. So made 1,400 on that. POAI, made 416 on that. I actually got out of it before, let's see, it halted going up, and then I jumped in it for a quick squeeze up to 39, then it halted coming back down and retraced the entire move. And I really only traded it kind of in the middle. IFRX, yeah, you know, you can keep an eye on it. I'm a little hesitant right now just because we're not seeing really good follow through. So anyways, so POAI, that was a winner right there. Then OPGN hits the scanners. I jumped in it thinking that it looked good if it broke over the high, yesterday's high. Certainly, it looked like it was doing a red to green, and it did pop up for a moment, and then it came all the way back down. I lost $1,000 on that. All right, so, you know, I started to dig myself out, and then I had that trade on OPGN, and then NCNA. This is the one that finally I said, all right, I'm done. So this stock squeezed up earlier, as you can see here. It halts going up, then it turns around and halts coming back down. It opens way down at $6, which is a very low resumption. And so I was like looking at this and I thought, I'm going to do a bottom bounce on this. I'm going to buy it off the lows. The stop is 6. And so I jumped in it right here for the break. For the break over 645, 650, looking for a squeeze and gap fill back up, not all the way to 850, but I thought that we would at least get some short covering coming back up towards 7, maybe 725. And it hit a high of 73. I was up 30 cents. But again, at that point, you know, I was in the mindset of I'm down 2,700 or 3,500 at that point, whatever it was. I'm not taking 20 cents off. I want to get a nice trade. So I didn't take the profit. And then it ends up dropping down, and I took $2,400 loss on it. IFRX, you can see here, squeezing up to a high of 88. You know, this is the type of stuff that, for me, halt levels at 604 creates so much FOMO, because, you know, you see that follow through and you think, oh, shoot, I should have just jumped in it. But at the same time, had it gone the other way, then I'm down 5,500, 6,500, 7,500. You know, you have to at a certain place. Look at that right there, down to 50. You know, I mean, that could be a $5,000 loss right there in that one trade. I'm not saying that it wasn't nice down here. It was, but they can do that at any point, and so you just have to manage risk, and you have to have a hard stop at some point when you're trading. My hard stop is at 5,000, but I just don't feel like losing an extra 700. And the reality is, if I take one more trade, like on this, I could easily lose 3,500, and then I'm down $7,000. So, you know, it's one of these things where the market is a little strange right now, partially because there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of greed. The coronavirus stocks are, you know, some of them have been working really well, but many of them have been, at this point, it's almost like an overplayed catalyst, because I don't know, they just kind of keep popping up and dropping. And look at APT. This is one that is definitely on the backside of the move. It went from 4 all the way up to 41. AHPI. It went from, $2 all the way up to $45. So these are now on the backside of the move, and these were sort of the leading ones that were driving the momentum. So when the stocks that were driving the initial momentum are dead, sympathy momentum, I can't imagine, is going to be particularly strong. I'm just disappointed that so the mistake that I made today was once I was up 2,000, actually I made two mistakes. Number one, once I was up 2,000, I didn't start reducing my share size. I was, and I guess part of that's because I was in the mindset of, if there's stuff moving, I'm going to try to capitalize on it, and I'm going to try to make as much as I can. And, of course, make back maybe some of the losses from Thursday and Friday. So I didn't scale down. And as a result, in one trade, I went from up 2,500 to down 2,700. I lost $5,000 in one trade. And you can see my biggest winner, today is $1,400. And, even though I was up 35 or 2,000 or 3,000, whatever it was on APDN before I went red, that was between 2 or 3 trades. So it wasn't like one nice solid $3,000 winner. It was a couple of small trades, and then in one bad trade, I gave it all back. So, that's really frustrating, just because it feels like, I'm trying to dig myself out of the hole from Thursday, Friday, and now the hole's even deeper, right? I went from down 21,000 in 2 days to now down 25,000 in 3 days. The biggest drawdown that I've had in recent trading history is $50,000, which is not insignificant. I can pull up my trader view stats for you guys. So I have my these are the last 2 days of February. But if we look at let's see, let's look at detailed and then win-loss expectation. So this is my drawdown graph here. So this shows you the cumulative drawdown, which is the most that I've gone red before bouncing back up and going back to green. So like down here in May of 2017, I went down 22,000 before digging myself back out of the hole. And you can see how it was over the course of a few days. Down, a green day, and then a couple more red days. And then I started to have a nice stretch of green days. Went red again before I got back to flat. And then once I'm back to zero, that means I'm at all-time highs. I'm just green day after green day after green day. So sometimes I have long stretches being up at zero because I'm having consecutive green days. May of last year, or March of last year, down 47,000. And again, that was over the course of several days. And then I had a really steep drawdown here in November, just terrible, and, obviously bounced back up. And so those are showing the downside dips of this equity curve. So this is the equity curve going up, which is great. That's the right direction that you want to see. But that graph right there gives you insight into how deep these dips are, just in terms of dollar amount. They're not percentage based, and I would say that it's generally good that I've got this much profit and the losses are still relatively small percentage wise, but still it's not ideal to have large drawdowns, and they can feel definitely a little bit defeating. And to be at the very beginning of a new month and start with a red day, not what I would prefer, not what anyone would prefer. But of course, that's part of trading, and being a good trader is about both knowing your metrics and no doubt having a willingness to get back on the horse after getting knocked off, because and maybe even to not consider a loss as being knocked off the horse, simply because losing is in fact part of being a good trader. But you've got to be a good loser. And That's something that's very, very hard to do. Even for me, even after all my years of trading, it's still hard at times to be a good loser. And today I started to feel like I was grasping a little bit for straws. So I started the day with a trade on DXR, which I thought was not the best setup I've ever seen in the world, but for a break at the pre-market high over 18 with an entry at 17 with 500 shares was reasonable in terms of risk management. Ended up losing $2 a share. All right, so that's not great. APDN trades, they were good, but then I started, of course, I got kind of knocked down on my first trade, so I was immediately in this kind of digging out mindset, and I got a little too aggressive on it. Ended up making some money and then giving all the money back. And then the hole was deeper. And then I was kind of, at that point, doing the grasping for straws. Anything that was starting to move, willing to jump in to see if it gave me 500 here, 500 there. I got 500 on POA, I lost 1,000 on OPGN. I got 1,400 on XAir and lost 2,400 on NCNA. So that's where I started to feel like, okay, if I keep going down this path today, I'm, as much as I would love to have an awesome trade right now, as much as I would love to have a trade that gave me $5,000 of profit and digs me out of the hole right now, the odds of that happening are getting lower and lower and lower every minute we get further into the day, because the best trades are in the first 30 minutes. And the odds have also gone down with every red trade that I've had, because it's very uncommon to have a day where I start deep in the red and end up having a fantastic day. So I'm definitely, a little disappointed that I didn't have, see, look at this thing. And this is frustrating because this speaks to right idea, wrong time. Absolutely had the right idea, but my timing was wrong. So I tried to do this right here, and now it's working. But that's part of trading as well. Sometimes you have the absolute right idea and your timing's wrong, and you want to ideally not take so much risk on the first stab that you can't get back in on the second one, on the second setup. And unfortunately on this one, I took too much risk on the first trade, and so I couldn't afford to go back in. And so I end up, just being the one who's red on it. I'm not sure that how much further it's going to go, and I'm not interested in trading it right here at this time of day. But yeah, just a choppy day, and the overall market, somewhat a factor in that. But I've also traded well during market corrections when the market's pulling back. My trading is not super correlated to the overall market, only because as a day trader, I'm just trading intraday volatility, and I thrive on intraday volatility. It just so happened that we're starting to be on the backside of this cycle of momentum in the coronavirus stocks, and yet we're still seeing new ones pop up because the coronavirus is still a real catalyst. And that's the thing that's a little bit confusing, because the stocks that were kind of the most reactive are fading, but yet you see others that are popping up, like CPHI launching a new product related to the coronavirus, and they are going up because coronavirus is still there. So it's kind of a funny disjoint right now between it's the realness of the catalyst and then the overreaction perhaps on APT and APHI, and how that's now affecting stocks that are coming out with news related to the virus. But one thing that I'll tell you guys is that I've obviously been trading for a long time. Trading is hard, there's no question about it. It's easy in some ways, but difficult in more ways than not. And through every one of these drawdowns, back here in 2017, at that point, on those days, it felt really bad. And I felt deflated. I felt disappointed in myself. That was shortly into my $583 challenge, and I had already announced my goal of $1 million, but I was only 7% of the way there. So I was like, gosh, this is terrible. It's going to take me 10 years. But I bounced back, and then, of course, another drawdown. They were kind of more frequent in 2017, 2018. And then I had some really nice green stretches, not a lot of drawdown. And then I was having big drop, rebound. Big drop, rebound, big drop, rebound, big drop, rebound. The good thing is that I rebound pretty quickly, as you can see. Generally, my rebounds are pretty fast. And it's because I do trade aggressively. So as an aggressive trader, the losses can be big and quick, but then the winners come right back. And so I had faith in the fact that, even if I have 4 red days in a row, that's not completely unreasonable, and it doesn't change the fact that I will bounce back. It just means the hole's a little bit digger that I got to dig myself out of, but I will bounce back. And I think that's a sense of confidence that you don't get until you've had this happen a few times. Because I remember one of the first times it happened, I was really scared. I was like, oh my gosh, I just lost, a lot of money over the course of the last month or whatever it was. Is this a turning point? Did I have a strategy that was working and now it's not working anymore? And now because in that short time frame, in the past 3 days, you could say, Ross, your strategy doesn't work. Because in a very, very narrow viewpoint, I'm red in 3 days. Okay, well, let's step back. And so once I recovered the losses from that first drawdown, I was like, okay. And of course, the way I recovered was by going through and asking myself, what was the cause of the losses? Were they avoidable? Was I breaking rules? Was I trading within the strategy? What was I doing right? What was I doing wrong? And generally speaking, after a series of losses, I often get back to, I tell myself to go back to basics, focus on the basic A quality setups that statistically are the best. And, that usually is a good piece of advice, to focus on, the basics. And to take the base hits, to get out quickly, not to overstay my welcome. And typically that does help me kind of dig myself back out. I would say today I got a little risky on this bottom bounce setup. Again, right idea for sure, wrong timing. I was a little early. APDN, I think I was overly optimistic. And I think that might be one of my biggest problems with the market at times is I'm overly optimistic of what a stock can do, and overly confident of what it could do, and that gets me into that overconfidence, and that optimism can get me into trouble, because instead of taking the base hit, I'm thinking, no, this thing has potential to go to 750. Of course, I've seen stocks just like it do that, but they don't always. So I don't know. In any case, this is a little bit of a disappointing start to the month, but I'm not going to be bent out of shape over it. To show you guys my metrics from the month of February, I had really pretty great metrics up until obviously the last 2 days. I finished up 66,000. I was up 85,000, so I was a little disappointed to give back some of those gains here, up 87 actually. But, and it was a great month. My biggest drawdown was only $5,000 up until those last 2 days. My average losers ended up getting bigger because of the last 2 days, 3 red trades that just threw that profit loss ratio out the window. So that's disappointing. 71% accuracy, that was still good. Quick trade, 6 minutes long, 9 minutes for the losers, in, out. So overall, it's a good month generally. And even though it's unfortunate that I'm starting the month red, you can just see how the winners and losers often get kind of grouped together. And if I go back to a longer period of time, you can see how that's often the case, that losers are kind of clustered, losers here clustered. Sometimes they're totally scattered, but a lot of times it does feel that the winners and the losers get clustered together. So, just something to be mindful of. Sometimes when it does get a little choppy out there, it's a good time to ease off the throttle a little bit. Try not to overstay your welcome. And then when things do finally pick back up, you can put the pedal to the metal. It's going to take a little time for me to probably feel confident really putting the pedal to the metal, because I got to dig myself out of this hole first. But I will. I'll get there. And if it takes a week, it takes a week. If it takes 3 weeks, it takes 3 weeks. I'll still be up, $20,000 for the month of March. If it takes 3 full weeks, $25,000, and that would be a pretty good month. So I just got a little kind of too aggressive at the wrong spot today, and that for me ended up being the tipping point where things kind of fell apart. And as I look at something like APDN right now, breaking the VWAP, or IFRX that we were talking about a minute ago, it can be very tempting to jump in when you're seeing them ripping up. But you have to think about the risk before you think about the reward. And the risk here is that if I have another loss, I'm going to be probably down more than $5,000. And then what? Then do I keep trading? And then I'm down $6,000. If I have another loss, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000. Got to throw in the towel somewhere. So might as well do it before I cross the $5,000 max loss, and then just live to trade another day. So I'll be back at it tomorrow. Doing the same thing really as today. I'm not going to do anything a whole lot different, other than knowing that what I do will dig me back out of the hole. It's the same thing that got me into the hole, but that's just the way the luck of the it's the luck of the draw. That is every trade is an educated guess ultimately, and I'm right 70% of the time. And if I change what I'm doing for 4 or 5 days, then I can no longer depend on the statistics that I use to take trades, because I'm changing what I know works over long periods of time. So I'll be back at it tomorrow. Hopefully we see better follow through. Hopefully the gappers are a little cleaner. This has been a little bit of a struggle each day, coming in and seeing pre-market that several stocks already have millions of shares of volume, because it feels like, I've already missed a lot of action. But that's part of what's going on right now with the coronavirus. It is making it a little bit trickier to trade the open. So I might pull back on that a little bit until things start to smooth back out. But otherwise, just be back at it tomorrow. And I had a couple nice green trades today, and unfortunately the red ones were a little bigger than the green ones. But maybe tomorrow the green ones will be bigger than the red ones, and I'll finish the day green. So I'll see you guys first thing tomorrow morning. Hopefully we have some good gappers, and I can finish the day in the green.
Hey, did you know that I go live every single morning between 9 and 9:15 to stream my pre-market watch list? Subscribe to the channel, press the bell for the alert, and you'll get the notification.